你听အောက်ထက်နော်ဆိုတော့
Hello, councillors. Could you all please take your places? Yeah. Public questions, we've got more public questions. That's submission, I think. That's a submission. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Is Councillor Pearce coming back in? Could somebody please check on her, please, at the side? Thank you for everybody attending the 24th of November 2020 Ordinary Council meeting and those online. I declare this meeting open at 4:02 and we'll start the proceedings with an announcement of visitors. We have no particular visitor beside Mr Farrant and a number of members of the public, and I do acknowledge you all, and I also would like to acknowledge country. I acknowledge the Balladong Noongar people, the traditional custodians of the land where we meet today, and the Yuid and Wajik people, who are the traditional custodians of respective lands within the Shire of Tujay. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Our records of attendance, we have all councillors are present with the exception of Councillor Bell, who's on leave. We have the CEO in attendance and officers of the administration. We have no apologies now. Our approved leave of absence is Councillor Bell for November, returning on the 30th of November. Councillor Bell again in January, returning on the 12th of February. Councillor Pearce away in January, returning on the 29th of January. We have no further applications for leave of absence. We have two disclosures of interest. We have the CEO has a disclosed interest in 14.1, but under the Act is allowed to remain in the room, and we have a disclosure of interest with Councillor McEwen for item 9.1.2. We'll now go to public questions, responses to previous public questions taken on notice. There were a number of questions by Mr Brian Foley on behalf of the 2J Progress Association, which have been listed in the minutes for those to read the response. We also have been given questions which just bear with me. I think all the one then is Mr. Jeff Appleby. So those questions I will read because he is not within the gallery, and the rest who are represented here will present their own. Mr. Appleby raised the summary of a question. The response given has been put into and will be available in the minutes. He also received 4 questions in total. Because of the length of the questions and because of the time allowed, I won't read all of these. The responses have been written and will be available in the minutes. There is one question from Mr. Brian Foley of the TPA. Mr. Brian Foley, is he present today? Yes. Would you care to read your question to Council?
Yes, thank you. It's Brian Foley, Chair of the 2J Progress Association. Look, I haven't received any written notification of my previous questions. Sorry, that didn't get a response. So could you read them out, please? I haven't seen the answers at all, and I don't have an agenda for today. So.
I only have one. Going back over, you have not received a response, is that my understanding? All right.
No, correct.
Brian Foley, the summary of the question taken on notice, summary of question 13 in the budget for the July 2020 Council meeting, the actual net current assets for the end of the year 2019-21 was $5,699,359, but the 2020-21 budget shows an opening balance of, I should say 5 million, my apologies, 5,699,359, and the later figures, the 2021 budget shows an opening balance of 3,489,111. Why do these figures not match? Please explain the difference of 2,210,248. The answer was, in the original 2021 annual budget, a typographical error was made with respect to the opening balance figure. This was corrected in the amended budget of 2021 adopted on the 5th of October.
Okay, thanks.
The summary of question 15 was the financial statement for the July 2020 Ordinary Council meeting shows the actuals net current assets the same as the budget figure for the 2019-2020, both at 2,319,310,000. Yet the budget figure now showing at the October 2020 Council meeting is 2,159,320. Please explain this variance. The answer is the October figure is based on the amended annual budget of 2021 adopted on the 5th of October 2020. Summary of question 16. The net current assets from the October 2020 Council meeting for the 2021 budget are now listed at 301,670. So we have gone from 5.7 million to 302,000 in just over 12 months. What explanation can be given and what impact does this have on the financial stability of the Shire? Now, just bear with me one moment. The answer to that was further clarification was required prior to providing a response, and that answer is actuals for the year ended 30th of June 2020 in the adopted budget were misstated in the rate setting statement, resulting in error in the net current assets at the start of the financial year in the statutory annual budget. Summary of questions.
Can I just interrupt there? One of the questions is, how does this have an effect on the financial stability of the Shire? Is that able to be answered now? You've told me why the error was there, but not my last question.
Madam CEO, would you like to respond to this?
Through the Chair, no, it doesn't. It is a matter of financial accounting.
But how do these mistakes happen?
Through the Chair, that was as a result of unexpended works on the recreation centre primarily. What was expected to be finished by 30th of June was not, and the budget was actually adopted quite early in the piece, so normally you would wait until the end of the financial year before you actually adopt the budget. The budget was apparently ready to go prior to 30th of June and was adopted by Council prior to 30th of June.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam President, can I just have clarification?
Yes. Certainly, Councillor.
Yeah. Has that misstatement been corrected in the reviewed budget?
Yes, it was corrected in the budget that was adopted on 5th of October.
Summary of question 17, when you're ready, Maria, please. From this October 2020 budget, you can see a number of cost-cutting areas, namely roads, and in the future more costs and services will need to be addressed to bring 2J into a financial position. But one item stands out, and that is no payments are to be made, capital or interest, for the leasing of the Komatsu grader and Vico truck amounting to 88,463. What penalties will the leasing company apply, as these are not shown as a cost? The answer is, with regards to lease costs, there is no reduction made in the October financial year 2021 budget compared to June financial year 2021 budget. Approximately 199,000 included in the budget. There is a GL line item for lease costs in the budget.
Madam President, if I may just add to that, the leasing cost is actually an operational cost, it's not a capital cost, so it won't appear in the capital expenditure area of the budget.
Well, the question was, in the previous year, on the budget, it showed two line items, capital payments and leasing payments, and in this budget, there was no mention of anything at all, so it just confused me.
Councillor?
No, I'm not a councillor.
I've just promoted you, Mr. Foley. Mr. Foley, we just need to run through this. If you have further questions, can you please put them? If they are only minor, we can address them now. If not, I ask that you submit them.
We'll leave that at this stage. I'll address that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so question 18 is the same as well. That's fine.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Does any other questions?
You had one question here.
I have 6 questions actually that I submitted.
I have one here. Was the recent employment of the Community Development Officer ratified by Council? And the same goes to the replacement for the Works and Services Manager.
I'm sorry, look, I think I might have sent that through by mistake. I might have hit send before I had done that, because I know I've changed that. Sorry, I think I might have confused you.
Thank you.
I do have 6 questions here that they're of similar vein, but am I able to read them out?
Just bear with me for one moment. We are still doing questions on notice.
Okay.
So we will move to public question time. And I ask that you identify yourself, please, and your address. You have 2 minutes for 2 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Foley, 2J Progress Association, Jewers Pool. What steps are Council making to comply with Local Government Act 1995A 5.36, Local Government Employees, such other persons as Council believes are necessary to enable the functions of local government and the functions of Council to be performed?
Thank you, Mr. Foley. Just bear with me while I read and digest that.
So Maria had included these as a submission.
I've just been informed this question was actually included in your submission. As such, look, I believe at this point I'm going to take that on notice and allow you to do your submission in its entirety, and this may well follow. Thank you.
Although there were two separate attachments, I did one submission, a tacit attachment, and one set of questions in my email.
We only have one question here.
Something's gone wrong.
Yes, I think so. There's one question and a submission here for you.
No, then something's wrong. All right, question 2.
All right, we will
We'll move on.
follow that through.
Yeah,
Thank you
follow
very
that.
much.
What steps are Council making to comply with Local Government Act 1995A 2.7.2? The Council is to B, determine the local government policies.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of difficulty understanding the question.
Okay, the question is, under 2.7.2, it states that Council will determine the local government policies. That's a bit of a background. There's been a number of policies submitted in the last couple of meetings that don't appear to have come through Council. They come through the administration.
Thank you. Yes, you're quite correct. Council does determine the policies. At this point, we have started the review. The review is that we are starting with some policies that are already as they were and putting those out to public comment, of which then Council will address them. We are also instigating a new system and approach to undertaking policy review, but we have not yet had that opportunity to bring that in. That will be coming up very shortly in the next month. Thank you.
I'll let other questions go for a minute.
Are there any further questions in the gallery? Yes, please. Mr. Panizza.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is...
Just excuse me, name and address, and thank you.
I'm being watched, yeah. That's thrown me completely, actually. Frank Panizza, I'm a farmer from the New Nile district in 2J, and it's presumptuous of me that when I stand here, everyone knows who I am. My question is in relation to the answers to Mr. Foley's questions about the misstatement. Are you suggesting there was $5 million of accruals?
Madam President. Oh, sorry, CEO.
I will defer to the Finance Manager to discuss this one.
I'd need to do further investigation.
We'll take that question on notice. It's Mr. Panizza.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Are there any further questions from the floor? Councillor, sorry, I'm doing it again, Mr. Foley. Must have a wish there.
You wish. Okay, it's Brian Foley again, Jewers Pool. These are Progress Association questions. So question 3, the recreation and pool complex, has this been finished?
The construction
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. When will council publish the final cost of this project?
I would refer to the CEO.
Through the Chair, Council will consider the final costs of the project at a budget workshop next week, and then it's anticipated we'll bring a report to Council.
And that will be public, I presume?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, at question 5, at the OCM 27th October list of payments, C1922, credit card for Scott Patterson, Digital River, subscription architecture engineering. Please explain what this was for.
Can you please explain that, Mr Acting Manager of Assets and Services?
Well, the charge is for an annual subscription for a 3D design software that I use on a daily basis, AutoCAD. It's just got a bit of a funny name for the business.
Yeah. So the question, our next question, that would have been in the name of Shire of 2J, not Scott Patterson, I presume?
That's correct.
Thank you. Question 6. At the OCM 27th of October, Mr Frank Panizza raised in his submission interesting facts regarding delinquent and outstanding debtors.
Excuse me, Mr Foley. You've had your 2 questions, and I do need to see if anybody else wishes to speak first. If not, you may continue.
Thank you. At the OCM 27 October, Mr Frank Panizza raised in his submission interesting facts regarding delinquent and outstanding debtors. What does Council have planned to address the facts raised in this submission?
If you could just wait one moment, we're just letting this Maria to catch up with the writing. Do you need the question repeated? No, thank you. Thank you, Madam CEO.
Thank you, through the Chair. Council is considering the state of the Shire's finances as part of the budget workshops that are commencing next week in preparation for the 21-22 budget. And obviously during the COVID pandemic, Council made a decision not to pursue legal action and so on in response to the COVID pandemic. Council will need to consider what its forward planning will be in regards to pursuance of outstanding debts.
I suppose my follow-up question to that would be, I'd like a positive answer in the next OCM, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted a positive answer to the outcome of your discussions at the next OCM. Thank you. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. If there are no further questions, Mr Panizza, please step forward.
Frank Panizza, I'm a farmer from New Nile area. Brian and I seem to be playing tag team today because once he's asked a question, I follow up with another question. But my question's following on from Brian is that the Chief Executive Officer, thank you for your answer, but I think what Brian's question was, which the thrust of my submission was, is what predicament has the Shire been left in as far as pursuing legal action, bearing in mind what the report from the department said. I think it's an invidious position. I've got to make a question here. Does Council understand my concerns? Thank you, Madam President.
Madam CEO, would you care to answer?
Thank you, Madam President, I believe Council is aware of the position that it's been placed in and has, as part of its response to the inquiry report, asserted its right to be able to pursue legal costs where required. The Council has adopted a policy that limits the amount of legal costs that can be incurred by the CEO under delegation, so that Council is made aware of what legal costs are being incurred. But the fact of the matter is the Shire needs to be able to pursue legal action where warranted to make sure that it can recover outstanding debts, rates and debts. So I think Council is certainly, without speaking on behalf of Council, I think Council is certainly aware of that. And as I said, that position will be considered as part of the budget workshops coming up.
Any further questions, gentlemen? If not, I'm going to move to confirmation of the minutes. 5.1, the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 27th of October 2020. Is there a mover, please? I'm sorry, Councillor. What? Yeah. So is there a mover? Thank you, Councillor Hart. Are there any questions or clarifications with regard to the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 27th? Are there any objections? Then that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. 5.2, special meeting of Council on the 17th of November 2020. The officer's recommendation is there. Is there a mover for Councillor Chitty? Thank you. Is there any questions or clarifications with regard to this item? Are there any objections? If not, then I declare this motion has been carried. Thank you. 5.3, agenda briefing held on the 17th of November 2020. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ruthin. Are there any questions or clarifications? Are there any objections? Then this this motion has been carried. Thank you. And we'll move forward to item 6, petitions, deputations, presentations and submissions. We have not received any petitions, deputations or presentations. Therefore, but we have received 3 submissions. Mr B. Foley, K. Morgan and F. Panizza. So can I ask, Mr. Foley, would you care to put your submission?
Thank you. It's Brian Foley, Jules Poole, Chair of 2J Progress Association. First of all, I want to say thanks for allowing me to put this submission through, because I know technically it should be on an agenda item, which this isn't, but it is on the long-term financial plan, which I know you're going to be discussing in the coming weeks. So the current long-term financial plan is from 2018 to 27 and is based on a rate rise of 2.5%. The forward estimate of the Consumer Price Index 2021 is 2.25, and then from then 2.5%, Department of Treasury economic forecast, and therefore a rate rise of 2.5% or less would be nice, but must be maintained. The current long-term financial plan shows every year that expenses outstrip revenue by $1 million. And this has to be reversed. I don't know how many councillors have viewed the My Council website, and it's an interesting one. It's mycouncil.wa.gov.au. If you want to have a look at it right now, I'm sure Maria could bring it up. And these facts are very evident in the charts that it contains. The figures and charts are always 12 months behind, so one has to be careful in the interpretation for today's figures, but the trends are the indicator. The financial health indicator score has been below the pass mark of 70 for many years and has been rising slowly since 2015 and is above the regional average, but who wants to be average? All it shows that regional councils have a hard time balancing books, but that's no excuse. Many ratepayers have blamed the building of the rec centre and the pool as the major financial problem, and I admit that the costs associated have not helped, but the trends show that 2J has been in financial strife for many years, and former councils under section 2.72 oversee allocation of local government finances, and CEOs 5.41b ensure that advice and information is available to the council so that informed decisions can be made, and 5.1g of the Local Government Financial Management Act 1996 assist in the preparation of budgets. Some or all of these have been deficient in the past, but by law these sections of the Act must be complied with. So do we continue to follow these trends or plan to reverse them and bring the financial position of 2J into sound position? For me, there are three ways to do this. 1, raise rates. 2, obtain grants. And 3, reduce expenditure. Raising rates above 2.5% is not an option that would be well received by the ratepayers of 2J. We've been down this road and it will again see unrest within the community. Obtaining grants, these normally do not cover income shortfall, so highly unlikely this is an option. Reducing expenditure, this is the only option. It will mean a reduction of works and services, staff, but the TPA sees as the only option in the short term. Long term, the Shire may be able to interest developers into more subdivision, which will increase the rate base. The other option is amalgamation into a larger Avon Regional Council, but again, this is long term. And right now, which council will want to bail out 2J? If amalgamation were to ever happen, 2J needs to go in as a strong Shire to obtain maximum value. So now it's up to 9 councillors and 1 CEO to come together for the good of the Shire and devise a long-term financial plan that keeps us in the black, has sufficient reserves to replace or maintain assets and provide the community with the new necessities. The TPA believe this review of the long-term financial plan is one of the most important reviews that Council will undertake. Make the wrong decisions and it will reflect adversely on the whole Shire for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Foley. Mr Morgan, would you care to step forward?
Madam President, I'm reading this submission on behalf of Kate Morgan.
Oh, it's Kate. My apologies.
Kate, yeah. So my name is Frank Panizza. I'm a farmer from the New Nile area of 2J, and for the benefit of for the council, the 2J Agricultural Alliance was formed. I think you officiated over the first meeting some 11 years ago, Madam President, and you'll be pleased to know that it's sort of gone from a group of a whinge fest to a properly organised grower group, and it's a conduit for not only scientific exchange and trials. There's quite a network, and we've become an NRM member, so we've sort of moved on from grizzling about rates and roads to other things. So this is our submission. I was the former chair and the inaugural chair, but other people have sort of taken up the fold now. The submission is Shire of 2J Ordinary Council meeting dated 24/11/2020, agenda item 9.1.4, request to adopt advertising draft local planning policy 24, farm buildings and outbuildings in rural residential, rural living and rural zones. This submission is made on behalf of the 2J Agricultural Alliance in relation to agenda item 9.1.4, request to adopt advertising draft local planning policy number 24, farm buildings and outbuildings in the residential, rural living and rural zones. Members of the 2J Agricultural Alliance, TAA, have raised concerns that this policy has centred around smaller rural residential land holdings without additional consideration to broadacre land use, and the policy should reflect the diverse range of land holdings and land uses in the semi-rural and rural areas of the Shire. The proposed restriction of a maximum farm-sized building of 1,000 square metres does not consider rural land use and modern agricultural building design. Hay sheds, for example, are usually well in excess of 1,000 square metres, and stock handling yards may be a similar size. I just put an addition here. For the benefit of the councillors, there is a move to cover stockyards with an iron roof, not because farmers are getting lazy, but in fact because of animal welfare, and also rainfall, downpours of rainfall falling on the yards and causing runoff of animal waste into waterways. The GA would also like to see some clarification of the differentiation of buildings from farm buildings, outbuildings from farm buildings. While the agenda notes describe outbuildings as those generally used for storage of possessions and structures that are ancillary to the main house, the draft policy stipulates that outbuildings can be used for parking of a truck and up to 2 trailers. That's quite a confusing point there, which I will raise in my submission. The preclusion of zinc aluminum cladding as per 5.1 would result in significant additional costs in the construction of a building, which is unjustifiable given the predominance of zinc aluminum sheds in agricultural areas. Additionally, many farm buildings are not visible from the roadway. Farm buildings are used for storage of fertilisers, chemicals and fuels, and for safety reasons these should be positioned away from dwellings, and that each other are necessary rather than grouped together as recommended in the draft policy. The TAA would welcome the opportunity to provide additional input into this policy to ensure that a robust document is drafted for the endorsement for advertising at a later date. Yours sincerely, Kate Morgan, Secretary, 2J Agriculture Alliance.
Now, Mr Peniza, before you walk too far, would you care to put your submission?
Thank you, Madam President. With the indulgence of the Council, I've actually, I don't have any written, but I've got a whole series of notes and scribbles and what have you in this piece of paper. I have got a copy for all elected members or the staff if they wish to see a copy of it. Bearing in mind my comments were after a long day and after 2 beers, so
I just remind you, Mr Peniza, there is a time limit on your submission.
I know.
Thank you.
This is the second 5 minutes, though, Madam President. Okay. In the policy, my suggestion is the policy seems to have been lifted from another shire that doesn't fit very well with our shire. I mean, for example, outbuildings are not to be used for parking of more than one truck plus 2 trailers or 2 small earth-moving machines used primarily off-site by the owners occupiers of the property. That's just poorly worded. I mean, small earth-moving machines, earth-moving machines go from 1/2 a tonne to 500 tonnes. Part 5.1, the suggestion that farm buildings and outbuildings be clustered in one location is completely silly. I mean, from a fire aspect, we should not have hay sheds, which are notorious for catching alight, hay sheds stored near farm chemicals, stored near fuel, as well as the issue if the farm shed catches alight. If the hay shed catches alight, it's difficult to try and control the fire with other things there. It's just a really silly suggestion. 5.1.2, farm buildings and outbuildings are to be sited and orientated to minimise their visual dominance and impact on the streetscape. For goodness sake, streetscape's not even defined. And 5.1.3, manoeuvring areas and filled areas that are positioned on the land so to minimise the removal of native vegetation. There's no definition of that. There's no definition. I have no idea what that means. 5.1.4, farm buildings or outbuildings on properties which contain or are adjacent to the heritage item. There's no definition of the heritage item. What on earth would that mean? probably one of the biggest things is the 5.1.5. It'd be limited to 900 millimetres of fill. There's not one farm building on our property that has got fill less than 1.5 metres. And the biggest shed I've got is 350 square metres. 5.1.7, watercourse. Watercourse is not defined. 5.3.2, to ensure the colours in the construction of farm buildings and outbuildings are consistent with the prevailing colours of the locality. That's a real doozy. I mean, I've read the heritage policy and the prevailing colours of the locality, in my understanding, is never defined anywhere in any information that comes from our Shire. I mean, I won't go on apart from saying that good policy, there's a lot of good policy in this Shire, it's well understood, but I'd suggest to Council, don't start with bad policy. It badly reflects on you, it makes it difficult for the staff, and it undermines confidence in your decision making. If I could make a suggestion, 2 suggestions, if I could. This item is deferred for some more workshopping, or this item that rural is just removed completely from this document and is dealt with as normal by the scheme. However, that would suit me as a broadacre farmer. However, it may not be fair to people living in rural living areas, 30 to 50 acres, that run small businesses from there. It may adversely affect those as well. So I can't really comment on that because I don't know what effect it would have on people. But I think it's poorly drafted, and I think it's below council, and I urge that it's amended before it's sent out for advertising. Thank you. Thank you for indulgence.
Thank you, Mr. Pineza.
I do have copies of all my scribbles.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I have not received, aside from those 3 submissions, is there anybody else here who wishes to put a submission in we haven't really had notice of? All right, I'm going to move on.
Madam President, if I can.
I do want to make a statement before we move to to the item number 8, because we have no business from a previous meeting to deal with, that I ask the public that in their discussions and presentations, submissions and questions, that they are mindful in the interest of community harmony to please be quite concise with their questions and not be subjective in any way, because it does have a very wearing impact on staff, particularly who put a lot of hours in, and it can be misplaced against councillors. So I would like everybody to work towards a common goal of improving things within the Shire. Thank you. I will now move to the announcements by the presiding member. Generally, when I put these up, I'm not going to read them out, simply because they're often quite lengthy and they're on the website and available in the hard copy of the minutes. However, one part I will read quickly because I believe this is of interest to those who may not perhaps take the next step towards finding the hard copy or searching online, and that is the Council was recently visited by officers from the Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries. Mr Gordon McMile, Executive Director, Mr Ron Murphy, Manager of Investigations and Assessments, and Marina Suka, Senior Project Officer. We were informed 2J will be a test case for a new approach to the recovery of a local government with adverse findings from an inquiry. This provides an opportunity for Council, in conjunction with the Department, to chart a new direction and address issues in a manner tailored to our needs. Discrepancies within the report were also discussed, and I'll add to that, were noted. The first stage in the framework of our direction was due on the 30th November 2020, followed by a governance review within 6 months. Work towards a review of governance had already been instigated when the report was received. Now, I just add further to that, we did receive ministerial permission to extend our reporting period actually I've already said it, 30th of November. So that is where we stand at this point in time. We have prepared a response and we will be moving forward. The rest of the activities that I've undertaken, I believe, should be available to the community. It's part of my accountability for my role on Council. So I would like to move to reports of committees and employees. 9.1.1. The officer's recommendation is on page 7. The 9.1.1 is the permanent road closures and amalgamations for MRWA, 2J Road and Strawn Road. The officer's recommendation, as I said, is page 7. Is there a mover? Councillor Greenway. Are there any questions or clarifications? Are there any objections? Then this motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Did you have your... No. Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Next item is 9.1.2.
Excuse me, does Councillor McEwen have to read out his declaration of interest before he leaves?
Yes, he does.
He does. Thank you.
Dear Sir, a written declaration of interest in matter before Council. The following information. I, Michael McEwen, wish to declare an interest in the following item to be considered by Council at its meeting to be held on the 24th of November 2020. Agenda item 9.1.2, development application, lot 107, Campbell Chase. The type of interest I wish to declare is proximity pursuant to section 5.60B of the Local Government Act 1995. The nature of my interest is I own a property directly across the road. The extent of my interest is not applicable. I understand the above information will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting and recorded by the Chief Executive Officer in an appropriate register. As a consequence,
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McEwen is leaving the chambers. Right. Item 9.1.2 is application for the development approval of lot 107 Campbell Chase in Dumbarton. The officer's recommendation is on page 13. Is there a mover? Councillor Ruthen. Are there any questions or clarifications? Are there any objections? Then this motion is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank
you. We'll just pause for one moment so Councillor McEwen can re-enter the chambers. Thank you. Which way do you go? I thought he went that way. No, go that way. Thank you. Councillor McEwen's just re-entered. Barely time to do a lap. So 9.1.3, the Omnibus Local Planning Policy Review, minor amendments. The officer's recommendation is on page 17. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Hart. Do I have any questions or clarifications? Sorry, Councillor Pearce. Before you, Councillor, you had some questions or clarifications? Yes, please proceed.
Excuse me, do you need a seconder for questions and clarifications?
No, you do not. Not for questions and clarifications. Not. Thank you. Please proceed.
My question is, what is the process if I would like to remove two of the policies there in the officer's recommendation to be reviewed in a workshop by council?
You can foreshadow an alternate recommendation which excludes those. Are you foreshadowing an alternate recommendation, Councillor?
I am foreshadowing an alternative recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions or clarifications on this matter? Are there any objections to this matter? Thank you. We will need a seconder. Is there a seconder to this item? Councillor Hart, you've already moved it. Sorry, Councillor McEwen? No? No? There's no seconder to this matter. Then, if there's no seconder, this item fails for want of a seconder. We will now move to the next item, which we can we will now move to the alternate. I'm sorry, you did foreshadow an alternate recommendation. Thank you. Councillor Pearce, would you like to please explain your alternative recommendation?
My alternative recommendation is that we remove the extract industrial area policy and the landscaping policy from the officer's recommendation, and these policies to join the process of review by the planning section.
If Council could just show some patience for a moment, please. Right. Councillors, are you all familiar with what the alternate recommendation is? Are there any questions or clarifications? Councillor Ruthin?
Yes, if we support this alternative motion, what happens to 1.3, which is LPP 25 dams? So can we vote on that one now?
Through the Chair, the alternate motion that is being proposed by Councillor Pearce proposes that LPP 25 dams is actually readopted with minor modification.
Are there any further questions or clarifications? Is there a Any objections? Councillor McEwen? So we will need to have a seconder for this alternate motion. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Ruthen? Councillor Pearce, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just very basically, I believe Council would achieve good governance in reviewing these policies and make amendments that may perhaps better fit the rural lifestyle in our community.
Councillor Ruthen, do you wish to speak to this alternate?
Only to say that I had some matters that I would have liked to have changed in the LPP 17, the Extracts Industrial Area Policy. So, yes, it would be good if it was workshopped, I think.
Councillor McEwen?
I think we're being asked to vote on LPP 25, is that correct? Yeah.
Can you see that written?
I'm just making sure.
Yes.
That comment from Councillor Ruthven confused me. My general point is that each time one of these planning policies has come up for review, it's collapsed, for want of a better word, and I don't see why this one is any different, because the public hasn't had, the general ratepayer hasn't had time for any input into it, and we're supposed to be reviewing. The purpose of what we're doing is to review current local planning policies, and that goes beyond minor amendments that we might see to reviewing it in the context of what the ratepayers themselves think about what might be outdated provisions. I don't know what farmers might think are outdated provisions, and I think we need to put it to the public, to public comment to resolve that issue. So I'm objecting to the motion.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers for or against this alternate motion? Councillor Pearce, do you want to have the right to reply? In which case I'll put this to the vote. All in favour of this alternate recommendation? All against? Those that voted for were Councillor Pearce, Councillor Hart and Councillor Ruthen. Those against were Councillor Madachi, Councillor Rayner, Councillor Chitty, Councillor Greenway and Councillor McEwen. The alternate motion has been lost 5-4. Oh, sorry, we've 9. Sorry.
3-5.
Oh, I can't do it that way. It's been lost 3-5. Thank you. Moving to item 1.4, request to adopt for advertising draft local planning policy number 24, outbuildings in the rural residential, rural living and rural zones. The officer's recommendation is on page 22. We do not have a... do I have a mover, please, for the officer's recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Chitty.
No, I'm not moving on. Moving to defer. To defer the this to a workshop.
All right, so you're foreshadowing a alternate.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Do I have a mover? The officer's recommendation has failed for want of a mover. Councillor Chitty has foreshadowed. Councillor Chitty, would you?
That this be deferred to a workshop with council. A future workshop.
Councillor, do you wish that to be a workshop or to the concept forum? You prefer it's a workshop?
Yes, you can have a workshop at the concept forum, I can imagine.
Yep. Okay, so that was... Are there any questions or clarifications? Are there any objections? Is there a second? Oops, sorry, if there's no objections, then the alternate recommendation stands. And it's carried unanimously. Oh, sorry. Oh, my apologies. Councillor Pearce.
I think as we have not accepted the officer's recommendation, we must have a reason why we have not accepted that. Is that correct?
No, the officer's recommendation has failed for want of a mover. So, moving forward to item 9.2.1, Corporate and Community Services, the monthly financial statements of September and October 2020. The officer's recommendation is on page 26. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chitty. Do you have any questions or clarifications? Yes, Councillor McEwen.
If I may, I've got two questions. There was a query at the agenda briefing about the costs of recreation and culture program, and we had a response from the Manager of Corporate and Community Services that there had been an error in that line item due to an invoice for $470,000 being posted to operating expenses rather than capital, and that line item would be adjusted. I just wonder, has that line item been adjusted since the agenda briefing?
Through the Chair, the line item has been adjusted since the agenda briefing. However, we weren't able to present a different report to Council.
So the report we've got hasn't got that line item adjusted. Okay. The second question I've got relates to note 10 in the financial reports, which is on, I think it's on page 84 of the attachments. I might have changed, hang on. Note 10, information on borrowings. 84, yeah. If people are at that, on that note, in the first column of numbers, there's loan 75, the recreation precinct, stated at 4.5 million, but in the second, third, fourth, fifth, in the fifth column, the principal outstanding actual is listed at 0. It doesn't make sense to me. Is there a reason why at the 1st of July this loan had a balance of 4.5 million and now it's got a balance of 0?
Through the Chair, I'll defer to the Manager of Finance.
The actual figures represent what we've actually paid to the WA Treasury Corp. So at this point in time, when the item was done, we have not made any payments toward the rec precinct to the WA Treasury.
No, that 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth column is principal outstanding. The actual the principal outstanding is shown as 0. If we haven't made any payments, the principal outstanding should still be 4.5 million.
Through the Chair, that loan hasn't been raised. That principal, as at 1st of July 20, is actually what's budgeted to be raised during the year.
In the note 10 for the statement of financial activity for the period ending 30th of June 2020, the 4.5 million is shown as a new loan.
But it hasn't actually been raised yet. The loan hasn't been raised yet, which is why we haven't actually got any outstanding amount at the moment. The loan is expected to be raised March next year.
Well, I'm confused at your logic, but I'll take your point.
I can provide further clarification via email and include something in the minutes if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll follow that up offline. Yep.
Councillor.
Yeah, sorry.
Councillor Pearce.
I just wanted to clarify. I received an email from the Manager of Corporate Finance that when she investigated the Recreation and Culture account, that $470,000 had been incorrectly posted and that there was going to be a correction. I'm just checking that money has now been correctly posted to the right account. It's not what I've asked about before. That was something different, but this was something extra that was found.
We're still in the process of doing some journals, but it has been corrected in the financials to reflect correctly.
Are there any further questions or clarifications? Are there any objections, Councillor? Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ruthen? Councillor Chitty, do you wish to speak to the financials? Councillor Ruthen, do you wish to speak to the financials? Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Madam President. Given that we now understand and have been told there is a $470,000 adjustment being made, but that isn't shown in these financials, I don't see how we can accept these financials.
Madam CEO, do you wish to respond, or is there anything further to add?
No,
to
Madam
position?
President, that is Council's determination.
Thank you. All right, Council. Okay. Are there any further comments for or against that we wish to raise? Councillor Greenway.
Can I just ask a question? If we accept these, then we're accepting an incorrect document. Is that right?
We're accepting the record is incorrect at this point in time, not that the finances are necessarily incorrect.
It doesn't make that statement anywhere here, though, does it? Or is that going to make that statement in the recording of this meeting?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Make that statement in the recording of this meeting, or?
Are you going to make that statement or ask for that statement, Councillor, to be made?
Point of order, Madam President. Maybe if if the financials are not passed, we could give that as the reason why we didn't pass them.
Absolutely. Very well. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further comment to be had, I will put the financials to the vote. All those in favour of the financials in their current statement, please put your hand up. Councillor Chetty has voted for. Those against? Councillor Madachi, Ruthen, Rayner, Greenway, Pearce, Hart and McEwen have voted against. So the motion has been lost by 7-1. I can't do it that way, no matter, it's lost. I will now move, and the reason for why the officer's recommendation has been lost is, does anyone in particular have wording they wish to put, or shall I just put that the officer's recommendation was not supported because the inaccuracies have not been, that were noted have not been corrected within this report?
Yes. Maybe the specific error of $470,000 being posted to the wrong line item or to the wrong account, because that was the issue that forced me to make the objection. There was an invoice of $470,000 posted to operating rather than capital. So it's been
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillors, can I have a show of hands? Does everybody support the response to the officer's recommendation, or the reason for rejection was that it was not supported because inaccuracies, e.g. the amount of $470,000 being posted to the incorrect line item that were noted have not been corrected within this report? All in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Unanimously supported, I should say.
Can I ask a question, Madam President?
Yes, Councillor.
How does this have an impact on flow on from this? What happens? We just get presented again the same document next.
We will need to present the updated financials for September and October at the December council meeting.
Yep.
We will also need to inform the department that we have not been able to adopt the September financials within 60 days.
Okay.
We're moving to 9.2.2, list of payments. October 2020. The officer's recommendation is on page 27. Is there a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Ruthen? Oh, was it? Oh, my apologies. I will put Councillor Greenway. Are there any questions or clarifications?
I have a question, if I can find it. Just bear with me.
Yes, Councillor McEwen.
It was a payment on the 30th of October to John Hanson. John Hanson for $460 something. If somebody could find that.
Councillor, does anybody in the interim, while Councillor McEwen finds the matter he wishes to speak to, have something that they wish to speak against?
What page, Brian?
It's page 96.
Okay.
Sorry, Madam President. Page 96, about...
Oh, yeah.
Councillors, would you like, excuse me, point of order, would you like some time to find this matter?
I found it, Madam President.
You found it, thank you. Councillor McEwen.
It's on page 96 of the attachments. It's about halfway down the page. 15th of the 10th, 2020. John Hanson. And the only question I'd like, it says that the description is BRPC reimbursements. I just wonder what BRPC reimbursements were. I wonder what the BRPC reimbursements are on the line item, Mr. John Hanson, on the 15th of the 10th, 2020.
Through the Chair, the Manager of Finance can shed some light on that one.
I'm not entirely sure about the abbreviation, but he's our bushfire risk management coordinator. So basically, he works off-site a lot of the time, and he will use his own credit card to pay for items that he requires. He's fully funded under DFS.
Yeah, maybe you could take it on notice, eh?
Certainly. BRPC means Bushfire Risk Planning Coordinator.
Yeah, it'd be just interesting to know what the breakdown was. Yep.
Right, thank you, Maria. Have you got that on notice? You're ready to proceed. Right, thank you. Right.
A question?
Yes, certainly, Councillor Ruther.
It's related to the way the list is set out. In the past, before we started the Datascape move, we had EFT numbers which made it a lot easier to identify each transaction. Will we be able to see them again sometime in the future?
Through the Chair, we'll take that on notice, but we will certainly look into that.
Are there any further questions or clarifications? Right, any objections to the officer's recommendation? If there's no recommendation, no objections, then the officer's recommendation is carried 8-0. We'll now move to item 9.2.3, the 2021 Australia Day WA Community Citizenship of the Citizenship of the Year Awards. The officer's recommendation is on page 32. This has a confidential attachment, and I assume, councillors, that you have read the confidential attachment to that.
Can I just ask to seek leave of the Shire President that we defer this item till we do go in confidential later, and that way the gallery, it might just save the gallery being here for so long. It's up to you though.
Through the Chair, if I may.
I was just about to go.
Council could actually choose to vote on the recommendation and then choose to undertake the secret ballot while Council is behind closed doors.
I was just going to say the recommendation doesn't have a confidential component to it. Thank you. So is there a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Rayner. Are there any questions or clarifications? Are there any objections? Then the officer's recommendation has been carried 8-0. Just bear with me for one moment, Cam. I'm now going to move to item 9.3.1 in executive services. There are 3 recommendations here, 1, 2 and 3, and starting on page 35 and ending on page 37, though I know page 37 has been marked as page 43. So moving to the office recommendation number 1. Councillor, you're familiar with these. Is there a mover? Councillor Rayner has moved. Are there any questions or clarifications? Are there any... Oh, Councillor Pearce, please speak.
My question is that when I initially came on council, we passed a resolution that council meetings were to start at 4 p.m. So I'm not quite sure why we have to reiterate 4 p.m. again. So could someone perhaps answer that question? And my next question is, as a council, if we stipulate that our meetings by resolution are to start at 4 p.m, will this have an effect on people standing for election in October?
Actually, that's quite an interesting question. I will defer to the CEO on this.
Through the chair, the first question about reiterating the time. Council is required to give public notice at least once a year of the time and dates of its meetings, so it is required to resolve that. Secondly, Council is being asked to make a decision based on the majority of its meetings for 2021 that will occur prior to the elections. So Council could, if it wished, think about the timing of meetings following the elections, but at this point in time, officers are recommending the status quo.
Any further questions or clarifications? Any objections? Councillor Ruthin.
I'd like to move an...
If you've objected, my apologies, thank you. We need a seconder before Councillor Ruthin can speak to her objection. So Councillor Greenway has seconded. Councillor Ruthin, before we go any further, Councillor Rayner, do you wish to speak to the officer's recommendation?
Yes, Madam President. Council has been running at 4 p.m. and the fourth Tuesday of the month for quite considerable time. Meetings have decreased in the time due to our more informative agenda briefings, and that a week before instead of a fortnight before, and administration is getting back to us with information that we require. And January and December being Christmas holidays and holiday time, the third Tuesday of the month has been fairly widespread across the Shire since many, many years. So I believe we keep it at 4 p.m. and have it on the 4th Tuesday of the month and the 3rd Tuesday of the month for the agenda briefing and council.
Councillor Greenway, do you wish to speak? No. Councillor Ruthen.
I'd like to move an amendment to the officer recommendation in part 1, and the amendment to be that ordinary council meetings will be held at the Shire of 2J Council Chambers on the 4th Thursday of each calendar month, commencing at 4 p.m, except for the months of January and December 2021, which shall be on the 3rd Thursday.
Now, that is not an objection, that was moving an alternate recommendation. So, Councillor, you've got that flagged. We need to go back to the substantive motion at this point in time. Is there, where are we at? Okay. Are there any speakers for or against the substantive motion as it stands? Councillor Pearce?
I'm not sure of the process. We have an officer's recommendation grouped 1, 2 and 3. What is the process to separate each of those recommendations into a single recommendation and council votes on each of those?
Councillor, in effect that's what we have done here. We've got 3 officers' recommendation that have the first one on page 35 that has grouped that data to do with the OCMs and agenda briefings. Then you move to the next one, that is council committee meetings, and then actually there's 4. The next one is the Avon Regional Organisation of Councils, which is AROC, and then the third is council committees. That's why. And then we've got the revised version of Officers' Recommendation 3, council committees, on page 37. All right. I've got one. Just bear with me for one moment. Councillors, can we just double check? We have Officers' Recommendation 1 on page 35, Officers' Recommendation 2 and 3 on page 36, and on page 37, which is put as 4, there's a revised Officers' Recommendation.
Through the Chair, I'm informed that the revised officer recommendation was not sent out, that it actually has been put in the minutes up, in the agenda, which is up on the screen right now. So there was an amendment to point 1 following a question at the agenda briefing about why the audit committee meetings had changed from Thursdays to Tuesdays, and the officer investigated and determined that there wasn't a clash as previously thought, and so she is suggesting changing the recommendation back to the first Thursday of the months.
So may I just clarify? We are going with Officers' Recommendation number 3 on page 36.
No.
We're going with the second one on 37.
No one else has page 37.
All right, so which is the actual recommendation? Because I have 2.
Point of order, aren't we on page 35, Officers' Recommendation 1, Ordinary Council Meetings?
Yes.
So how about, can you stick to that one?
Councillor, however, we are trying at this moment just to clarify that we all are on the same page with the same data. Could you just please be patient? Right, thank you. So at this stage we have a mover and we have a seconder. Councillor, neither have spoken yet. Councillor Rayner, do you? Oh, you have. Councillor Greenway, you chose not to. So those that are speaking for or against, please, is there any speakers for or against? Councillor Ruthven.
Hasn't Councillor Ruthven already spoken?
No, she
No.
foreshadowed an alternate.
Okay.
Probably not strictly where she should have, but nevertheless it was foreshadowed.
The reason I have foreshadowed the alternative motion and am speaking against this is that between the agenda briefing and the meeting, we don't have a lot of time and not enough time if anybody wants to put up another motion. By separating them a little bit further, and it's only pushing it out by another 2 days, I think that it allows us more time to go through in detail what we have in the agenda, which doesn't always happen before with the agenda briefing. Often there is more information that comes out at the agenda briefing as well, which is pertinent, and I think more time would be better.
Are there any further speakers for or against the substantive motion? Councillor Chitty.
Yes, I'd like to speak for the substantive motion as it is. I do think Tuesdays has been traditionally, we don't always have to follow tradition, but traditionally a day that has suited councillors. All these councillors that were elected at currently have got into the groove of having it on a Tuesday. Enough time, as Councillor Ruthven has just said, well, you know, how much is enough? You could put it out a bit more if you wanted to, but I just think we just leave it as it is. 4 o'clock, we can change it after the elections next year if there are councillors that work, you know, we're open to change. So, but I personally would like to leave it on a Tuesday as we have done.
Any further comments for or against? No. Councillor Rayner, you heard the right.
Right, Madam President, keep going. Put it to the vote.
Fine. So I'm going to put the officer's recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? Right. Those supporting are Councillor Rayner, Chitty, Greenway and Pearce. All those against are Councillor Madachi, Ruthen, Hart and McEwen. So we have a 4-4 lock. Well, I've voted against. I have voted against, so I will be, the deciding vote will be we have lost we've lost 5-3. 4-3. 4-3.
5-4.
It can't be 5-4. We only have...
Deciding vote.
Oh, the deciding vote. Yes, my apologies. I'm counting heads.
Madam President, can I just flag a thing? I'll be missing at council meetings from now on because I work on a Thursday. So that's... Sorry. I work Thursdays.
Okay. Thank you, councillors. Officers' recommendation number 2. Avon Regional Organisation.
Point of order, Councillor Ruthin. Foreshadowed motion.
Yeah, I think it has a foreshadow.
Sorry. Councillors, come on, there's a little bit too much chatter, let's just focus. It's quite difficult at times to follow everything going on when there is distractions. And please show some decorum in Council too. Councillor Ruthin, you did foreshadow a alternate motion. Will you please put that alternate motion?
Thank you. That part 2 remains the same and part 1 becomes ordinary council meetings will be held at the Shire 2J Council Chambers on the 4th Thursday of each calendar month, commencing at 4 p.m, except for the months of January and December 2021, which shall be on the 3rd Thursday.
Thank you. Are there any questions or clarifications with this alternate?
I would like to move an amendment to the alternate motion, please. And that amendment be that if we have to have it on a Thursday, we change the time till 6 o'clock.
So now Councillor Chitty has put an amendment further to this. First, we will need, we will need a seconder for Councillor Ruthin's foreshadow motion, and then we will deal with Councillor Chitty's amendment. So, is there a seconder for Councillor Ruthin's motion? Thank you. Councillor McEwen. Councillor Ruthin, do you wish to speak to this foreshadowed?
No, I think I've said it already.
Councillor McEwen, do you wish to speak further?
No, Madam President.
All right, we will move to Councillor Chitty's amendment, and that is that if we have it on a Thursday, the time be amended from 5 to 6 p.m. Is there any questions or clarifications? Is there a seconder for Councillor Chitty's amendment? Councillor Rayner. Is Councillor Chitty, do you wish to speak to your...
Yes, I will do, just quickly. As some of the councillors have indicated here, that they do work, and of course we will be having an election next year, and there possibly will be some more councillors that work and can't get here till a bit later. Thursdays, personally, doesn't suit me, but I could make it at 6 o'clock as well, so that's why I've foreshadowed this amendment.
Councillor Rayner, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, Madam President. Exactly the same reasons for Councillor Chitty. I worked my work because I could have worked Tuesday, but I worked Thursdays and Fridays and Wednesdays. So Tuesday was the only day that Monday and Tuesday was the only 2 days that I would have been able to attend a council meeting. So if we make it 6 o'clock, that would be suffice.
Are there any objections to Councillor Chitty's amendment, of the amendment? If there are no objections, then Councillor Chitty, do you want to have the right to reply? Then I will put this amendment to the vote, that if the date of the OCM changes to a Thursday, so the wording is, if we have it on a Thursday, the time be amended to 6 p.m. All those in favour, please show of hands. So we have Councillor Madachi, Ruthin, Rayner, Chitty, Greenway, Pearce and McEwen for. Those against, Councillor Hart. So the amendment has been carried. Councillor Chitty's amendment has been carried 7-1. We'll now return to the amended or foreshadowed motion. So that has now become the substantive motion. So we have the substantive motion now reads that ordinary council meetings will be held at the Shire of 2J Council Chambers on the 4th Thursday of each calendar month, commencing at 6 p.m, except for the months of January and December 2021, which shall be held on the 3rd Thursday. And point 2, agenda briefings will remain the same. If there's no further comments to that or concerns, then I will say, Councillor Ruthin, you have the right of reply.
Thank you. Those of us who've been around for a while might remember that all meetings used to be held at 6 p.m, so that's why I have no objection. I think that this is a better option and I will be supporting it.
Right, thank you. I'm going to put this substantive motion now to the vote. All in favour of the substantive motion with those amendments, please raise your hands. That motion has been passed 8-0, carried 8-0. Thank you, councillors. We will now move to the officer's recommendation 2, Avon Regional Organisation of Councils, that council notes the dates of the AROC Governance Group and AROC Officers Group for 2020, subject to change by the members of AROC. Is there a mover? Councillor Ruthin. Are there any questions or clarifications? Are there any objections? Then I declare the officer's recommendation 2 has been carried unanimously. Moving to officer's recommendation 3, council committees.
Madam President, may I just suggest that the officer recommendation is proposed to be revised. Point 1 to read: the Audit and Risk Committee meetings will be held on the first Thursday of the months of March, June, September and December, commencing at 2 p.m. unless otherwise determined by the chairperson of the committee.
Thank you. Has Council fully understand and has read this? So we will move to, is there a mover for the revised officer's recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Chitty. Are there any questions or clarifications? Councillor McEwen.
The Museum Advisory Committee meets on the 4th Thursday of the month. Does that cause a problem? Well, it doesn't really matter when it meets. This says it meets on the 4th Thursday. Yeah.
Can we just... It says 5 on there. It should be 4. Yeah, 4. Thank you, Councillor McEwen, for your eagle eye. Right.
Does that cause a problem?
All right, then you need... Right, we'll go back to questions and clarifications. Are there any further questions and clarifications? Are there any objections?
That clarification on the 5 p.m. That's Sorry, Madam President. That 5 p.m. is an hour before the ordinary council meeting. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, well, the recommendation says 5 p.m. So there should be amendment? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I was
Through the
just
Chair, there was
okay.
clarification.
Council, can we just all pause for a moment and we will just double check this and make sure we have it right before we proceed. Thank you. Just bear with me.
Yep. That's better.
All right, councillors. I think we'll move forward. We have a 2-hour window between the museum meeting and the OCM, so I think that's probably sufficient, to be quite frank, unless anybody has an objection. So that's where we are sitting at the moment with a substantive motion. We have, at the moment, we have a mover with Councillor Chitty. We are asking for questions or clarifications, and we're now moving to objections. Are there any objections?
I'm not sure whether this is actually an objection, but I would like to amend Part 1 regarding the Audit and Risk Committee schedule. And the amendment that I would like is that the meetings are held bi-monthly from February 21 on the second Thursday of the month, commencing at 3 p.m, unless otherwise determined by the chairperson of the committee.
Right. Thank you. So we have had, we need a seconder first before we go any further with objections or dealing with this objection. So do we have a seconder to the officer's recommendation 3? Councillor Rayner. Councillor Chitty, do you want to speak to the officer's recommendation? Revised, not including what Councillor Ruthen has proposed.
Oh, so hers is a foreshadowed amendment?
Hers is foreshadowed.
No, not particularly, thanks.
Councillor Rayner?
No, Madam President.
Right. Are there any speakers for or against the officer's recommendations as it stands? Then I will move to... Oh, Councillor Ruthen, please speak.
Thank you. My amendment affects only members of the Audit Committee, and the reason why I'm voting against quarterly meetings is that the progression of the migration to Datascape is bringing up a few errors, and I think that the Audit Committee would be better off meeting more regularly than quarterly.
Is there any questions or clarifications to the proposed foreshadowed amendment? Sorry.
I'm just... would this be better, with all due respect to Councillor Ruthven, handled as a... we can just alter point 1 instead of having a foreshadowed amendment? But
That's what you were intending on doing?
You were intending on doing that,
Right.
not having a foreshadowed amendment, so then we can...
Thank you.
And
then
if that's the case, I then accept that...
alteration, yes. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Chetty, and that might be a much easier solution. So we'll move back to putting the Audit and Risk Committee meetings to be held first, commencing from February bi-monthly, into the substantive motion. This is an amendment to the substantive motion. Right. Now, where are we? Councillor Chitty, You have spoken. No, you haven't spoken yet. You chose not to. Councillor Rayner, you chose not to. So we're back to the alteration by Councillor Ruthin has been accepted by Councillor Chitty. Therefore, we are now back to speaking for and against. Does anybody wish to speak further for and against?
Can I just say, point of order, does the seconder have to also agree?
The seconder, he acknowledged that he did, but he didn't actually state it. Okay. So my apologies, Councillor Rayner. I assume that, yeah, you accept those? Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Chitty. Right, I'm going to speak for this amendment with the Audit and Risk Committee. There's a significant amount of changes coming in over the next 12 months. We are in a very, very difficult year. 2020 has been a very difficult year. We've had a number of very large matters occur within our organisation. We've had changes in administration. We've had the installation of a very large conversion to a different computing system and the associated issues that come with that. The full installation, we are looking at approximately 18 months, another year to 18 months to have ironed out all those problems. In that time, you have staff that are having to work with a system that they're not yet completely familiar with. On top of that, we have had quite a bit of pressure with the inquiry. We've had a $14 million rec centre and all the work that that's entailed, and a series of contracts. So I think we're in a position where the risk of errors happening in the normal course of business has a higher risk than normal, and that is to be expected in a period of such high transition. Therefore, it's important now that the Audit Committee has that extra vigilance being applied to what is happening and the extra oversight that Council needs to be aware of. So I certainly support bi-monthly until we reach a period where we settle down and we know that we are now got all our processes in place and we're running well. Thank you. Are there any further people to speak before I give the right of reply to Councillor Chitty? Councillor Chitty, do you want the... Oh,
no, just...
Excuse me, Councillor. Did you want to speak? Councillor McEwen was about to speak. Could you just wait? Thank you. Councillor...
No, it was just... I had a point of clarification before. The simple question is, has this been discussed by the members of the Audit Committee? Is what you're saying reflective of the general view of the Audit Committee?
Most of us are here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
No, it hasn't, and the reason is that decision is usually made by Council. Okay, Councillor Rayner, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, Madam President, just a question. All the others have got the months. I know bi-monthly from February, but do you want to include the months in there or not? No? Okay.
I don't personally see that there's a need. However, I'll refer to Councillor Ruthin, and the CEO do see a need for it.
I'm confused because what I'm looking at on the screen is, for one, the Audit and Risk Committee meetings will be held first commencing from February 21 bi-monthly. So that's every second month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Greenway?
I just have a question about the time. So it's a 2 o'clock start? If you're looking, is that correct?
Yeah.
2 p.m? Yeah, 2 p.m. So is that not a pretty bad time if you're looking to get people on board the Audit Committee who work? I know we have had local business people on, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 o'clock. I mean, if we're starting council meetings at 6, is 6 o'clock on that day not a good time, I would suggest?
It's debate, councillor.
Sorry. Can we...
It is.
Is there a
Thank you.
reason? Is there a reason for the 2 o'clock start?
At the moment, everybody seems quite satisfied with the 2 o'clock start in this audit committee. So unless there is a reason or request to change it, there doesn't seem to be any requirement to do so. So that can certainly be addressed when you have the review of the times and dates at a later date. Yes, councillor.
Can I make an amendment to it now for 6 o'clock start? Is that not
So you wish to make it a 6 o'clock start, councillor. We have actually moved past that stage. We are now at the we passed through all the amendments. We're now down where Councillor Chitty has the right to reply. Yeah?
Madam President, you can do an amendment any time before that period.
She can. Thank you. All right. She has. Okay. So, councillor, you would like then excuse me, Councillor Chitty, hadn't you at that point declined your right of reply or not? Okay, thank you. Just clarify. Right, councillor, you would like to have the Audit and Risk Committee meetings will be held first. I'm sorry, I've just lost this. Held on the first held first, commencing on the February 2021 bi-monthly on the second Thursday, commencing at 6 p.m. Fine. Unless otherwise determined by the chair of the committee. Is there a seconder? Or actually, is it? Yeah, Councillor Chitty, do you accept that? No. Okay. I'm sorry, councillor, that's not been accepted. So we're back to the substantive motion. And do you want the right of reply, councillor?
No, thank you.
I'm now going to put the substantive motion as it stands on the screen to the vote. All those councillors in favour, please raise your hands. So we've got Councillor Madachi, Ruthin, Rayner, Chitty, Pearce, Hart and McEwen. Those against, Councillor Greenway. The motion has been carried 7-1. Yes, councillor.
I know we have passed the officer's recommendation 1, but in that recommendation it does not actually say when we are going to start these meetings.
Sorry? When we were to start?
Doesn't it actually say when we're going to start having the meetings at 6 o'clock, is that right?
Yeah, it doesn't. So I'm not sure. I'm going back, but there is no mention when it will start.
Mm-hmm. Right. The agenda briefing. Okay. 13 commencement.
Madam President, if I may, we could include a note to the minutes that the intention, in accordance with the officer's report, is that these meetings are for the calendar year of 2021.
Councillor Chitty, on number 1, that was Councillor Rayner. You accept that? Yep. Councillor Greenway, do you accept that?
I'm getting very confused here. Maybe we might need to take a look. Councillor Pearce was referring to recommendation 1 on page 35, is that correct?
That's correct.
So why am I asked to do anything?
You weren't.
No.
The mover was Councillor Rayner
Oh, I thought you mentioned my name.
for the substantive and Councillor Greenway as the seconder. Thank you, councillors. Then I will, while that's been accepted, we really should vote on this because this is it's a note there. Yeah, it's a notation, so we don't need to vote. So we will now move to Works and Technical Services, item 9.5.1, proposed disposal of objects from the museum collection. And the officer's recommendation is page 39.
Madam Chair, it's committee reports 9.5, sorry, not Works and Technical Services. There are no reports for Works and Technical Services this month.
Stand corrected. 9.5, immediate below, committee reports. Yes, thank you. Proposed disposal of objects from the museum collection, 9.5.1, officer's recommendation on page 39. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hart. Are there any questions or clarifications? Are there any objections? In which case, the officer's recommendation has been carried, 8-0. Then going to, we now move to item 10, motions of which previous notice has been given. There have not been, we have no notices of motion.
No notices.
No. Notices of motion being given at the meeting for consideration at the next meeting. We've not received any. Questions of members of which due notice has been given. Councillor Greenway has asked 4 questions and the answers to Councillor Greenway have been placed in the minutes. For those that wish to read, we have received, just bear with me, one of urgent business or not? We have received item 13, new business of an urgent nature, introduced by the decision of meeting. 1 notice from Councillor Chitty. Oh, excuse me. Rolled it out. Club Links contract. Councillor Chitty has stated, my understanding is that there is not a signed enacted contract with Club Links for the management of the 2J Recreation Centre. This has been confirmed to me by the Shire President. What are the risks to the Shire of 2J not having a signed contract and Club Links staff managing the facility? The response is, Council has selected the preferred tenderer for the management of the Recreation Centre and endorsed the essential contract terms. There is clear... Now, I'm reading, this is actually her question that she put.
Yes.
Yeah. There is clear legal intent to have... sorry, step back a bit. For the management of the Recreation Centre and endorse the essential contract terms. There is clear legal intent to have Club Links manage the facility. The risks at present are borne by Club Links as they have employed staff and are incurring operational costs with no payment as yet from the Shire. The facility is insured by the Shire and Club Links has its own public liability insurance in place. Right, then moving to new business of an urgent nature, which I first announced wrongly. 13.1.1, Club Links contract. Councillor Chitty has advised of new business of an urgent nature regarding the Club Links contract that she wished to introduce by decision of the meeting. Councillor Chitty moved a motion as follows: that Council considers item 13.1.1, the Club Links contract, as new business of an urgent nature. So, first, is there a mover for... You've moved it. Thank you, Councillor Chitty. Are there any questions or clarifications? Yes.
Is it true, I know, because I know it's urgent, we don't have a contract with them. Is the Shire at risk?
Through the Chair, that question was answered previously, just up above.
Are there any further questions or clarifications? Councillor Pearce.
Council agreed on the 22nd of September, in essence.
Sorry, Councillor Pearce, we're interjecting here, but we are all this is just to see whether we hear this as a new business of an urgent nature, not debating the...
No, we're not debating. At the moment is whether or not we decide whether this motion, and sorry I've misled you a little, we are simply deciding whether the motion as put is accepted as an urgent matter of business. That's what we're deciding. So Councillor Chitty has moved it, so really we will move to, is there any objector to this motion as it has been put as urgent business? Councillor, thank you. Is there a seconder for this motion to be accepted as urgent business? Councillor Rayner. We're not going to go to debate on this. The matter is simply whether or not it is urgent business or not. Councillor Chitty, you are entitled to speak to your motion.
Don't know whether I'm allowed
well,
to
not
speak
the motion,
to my
but speak to whether you believe it to be of urgent nature.
I do believe this to be of very urgent nature, without going into debate, it's because I think this leaves Council at risk if we don't hear my motion.
Okay. Councillor Rayner, do you wish to speak? All right. Then I'm going to put it to the vote. Do we consider, Council's been asked the question, do we consider that this item be considered as a matter of urgent business? All in favour of being seen as urgent business? All right. That is Councillor Rayner, Councillor Chitty, Councillor Greenway and Councillor McEwen believe this is a matter of urgent business. All those who don't believe it's a matter of urgent business is Councillor Madachi, Councillor Rayner, Councillor Ruthen, Councillor Pearce and Councillor Hart. Again, it falls to me. I am going to cast a deciding vote that it's not considered a matter of urgent business, given the information that's been distributed to councillors following. Thank you. So the has been lost. 5-3.
Can I request a 15-minute adjournment, please? We may have a 15-minute adjournment. All in favour of a 15-minute adjournment? Thank you. There was a unanimous vote.
Do I get the cable back as well? Fully charged? Good. and you've only used a quarter of it. Oh, see those 3 lights? Yeah.
No, it has to be voted. You,
I want to know what sort of dinner you're putting on at the 6 o'clock start now. What's...
Caviar and champagne.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Oh, we'll need some something to eat. Could be long nights
It will be.
by the time you get home.
Yeah. Why I voted against
You might
it.
need a chauffeur. I don't know what's happened there. So I normally do check before I hit send, but obviously
that's okay.
I did it when we were down in Busselton over the weekend. I did it from down there, so I was under pressure. Sorry about that. Okay.
That's lovely.
I just thought that was a little bit concerned. I thought either there or here, but...
Better here because, better there I should say, because then I can see everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, and the hearing I can hear well too. Particularly because I'm not behind Paula, which is very hard to hear sometimes. No, that's good, thank you very much. It's perfect, and I can make myself a cup of tea too.
Yeah.
Talk radio. Not too bad. No, good. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much.
That's all. Agenda briefing. Oh, it's just
Okay, councillors, can we start taking our seats, please? Yes. No, we're waiting on Councillor Ruthen will be here in a moment. Thanks so much. I see little snake crossing the road. It's supposed to be a good omen. Throw that superstition out the window. Like a kicking cat. You're taking this with great grace. I'd be at the weeping point. That comment was also to all those online who come in and make questions and aren't careful about the way they do it. And I think we need to be right. Okay. Council, if we can take our seats and just wind this up. Before we move to just going through the next meetings, which I'm not going to repeat, everybody's here, and those, oh well I should really for those on camera. The Environmental Advisory Committee meeting is on the 30th of November.
Madam President, I'm sorry, there's a confidential item.
prior to, yes, okay, I think we'll do that, and then before, just bear with me. Yeah, okay. We're going to move behind closed doors for the end of the meeting, so I will just let everybody know that I've received a memorandum in accordance with the Local Government Act of 1995, 5.4A2, that we, the undersigned, being at least 1/3 of the total number of councillors, request that a special meeting of council will be held in the council chambers, 15 Fiend Street, 2J, at 7 p.m. on the 24th of the 11th, 2020. And that has been signed by 3 councillors, Councillor Chitty, Councillor Greenway and Councillor McEwen. The purpose of the meeting is that to further discuss the contract with Club Links. Now we'll just move, we're going to move behind closed doors now to deal with 2 confidential items. Councillor, is there a mover? Councillor Rayner has moved we go behind closed doors. Is there a seconder? Councillor Greenway. All in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. For those who are still waiting, we are now just finishing the meeting. We've gone behind closed. Just bear with me one moment. Sorry for the slight hiccup in proceedings. We will now go to item 14.1, which was a confidential business of the Chief Executive Officer probation review. The officer's recommendation is that Council, following consideration of the quotations received, appoints Boab Consultancy to assist Council with the CEO's probation and remuneration review. 2, determines that all elected members will participate in the review process. 3, authorises the Shire President to finalise the review process with the appointed consultant. 4, notes that A, the allocation for governance, other, in the adopted 2021 annual budget will be used to fund the engagement of an external consultant. And B, a report will be presented to Council as soon as practical to endorse the outcomes of the CEO's probation and remuneration review. That concludes our business for the meeting. The next meetings that are going to be held are the Environmental Advisory Committee on the 30th of November, the Audit Committee on the 3rd of December, the agenda briefing on the 8th of December, and the Council meeting on the 15th of December to allow for Christmas. That concludes the...
Madam President, there's also a special Council meeting today at 7 p.m.
And we will now have, following the closure of this meeting, a special meeting of Council at 7 p.m. for the purpose of to further discuss the contract with Clublinks. Thank you. I close the meeting at 7:03.